service upstairs in the library after you've grabbed your cup of coffee from the Bamba balcony to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, each other, as well as this congregation. Our session is called Connecting. Robin, who's going to be leading the Connecting session? Do we know?
It will be myself with Chris Shamber, and Tanya is with us as well.
Tanya is with us with a baby in tow. Welcome, baby Callie. Woot, I love it. Okay. Next Sunday is an exciting Sunday for me personally because it's the first time in my 18 years here at Beacon that we are having a theological face-off. That will be Robin and myself, kind of like a political thing, but anyway, it's a whole thing. If you're online, you can enter your theological questions. Please, no questions as to where we go grocery shopping. Those are not theological. In the chat.
I go several places.
Yeah, but not for theological reasons, right?
Sometimes that too.
In the chat is a link to where you can drop in your theological questions. And this box over here has notepads and pens where you can come up after the service and write your wondering questions, your theological wonderings, big questions. And Robin and I are going to try and take that on next Sunday. This is December 11th, the second Sunday of the month. And as is our tradition, on the second Sunday of the month, we read together a congregational covenant. Each one of you should have received a little slip of paper or should be able to share. If you haven't, would you raise your hands, please? Does everybody have, not have? Yes, excellent. If you don't have, let us know and we can get it to you. Anybody doesn't have? Missy, and could we get more covenants, please? Could we get more covenants handed out? Please raise your hand so our ushers can get you a copy of the covenant. And we need them upstairs as well. Some are needed upstairs as well. Thank you. Yes? Okay, so some are coming upstairs as well. Thank you for getting them upstairs. All right, so let us start reading our covenant together. Love guides this congregation. Love calls us daily to acts of liberation, grounded in anti-racism. We affirm that we live in the complexity of intersectionality and that building healthy and loving relationships is a spiritual practice, requiring both inward and outward. Thus, covenant to listen deeply, speak compassionately, express gratitude, and embrace our unique diversity. We endeavor to communicate honestly and with compassion, particularly when we are in conflict. When we hurt one another, we will try to make amends, forgive, and reconnect with an intent to repair, change, and grow. Our purpose is to be radically inclusive, feed the human spirit, and heal the world. In celebration of the common purpose that unites us with the aspiration of beloved community before us, we will do our best to abide by this covenant. Thank you all. Let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Misa Iwama. I'm the Director of Music Ministry. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm delighted to be here this morning with our choir and with John O'Neill. And we're going to start with hymn number 225. That's O Come, Emmanuel, in your gray hymnal. I invite you to stand in body or spirit and sing along. And this tune is actually from the 9th century and would have been sung and created by Gregorian monks. So as we enter into this season or continue in this season of Advent, we'll sing 225.
Rejoice, rejoice.
Thank you, Misa and John. Whew. I'm Reverend Robin, a member of the lead ministry team, and my pronouns are she and her. Albert Einstein taught that there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. What if for this hour, these 55 minutes now, we held the ought to be, should be, never will be at bay? Keep it with the predicted spreadsheets and charts that tell you you know the conclusion to this story already. Instead, listen for new story. Take nothing for granted in this moment, the air inhabiting our bodies, the dust of ancestors settling at our feet, the trees past the windows, transforming our exhale waste into life. Or you, beloved, taking heaps of bad news, heartache, and tough, exhausting days, and still finding the muscles for laughter, enjoying the taste of that favorite meal, falling in love again, listening for a new tune that twirls in your heart, you sourcing hope miraculously again and again. All of us on this beloved earth, miracles in the making. Come, beloved, inhabit the wonder of what if could be, just might be, may be. As we kindle, where is it? This light of our faith. And what's more, the lights of the Advent wreath in this, the time of waiting. Thank you, Dr. Tooley. If you were at the first service, you know the chalice was here. You may not know I was the one who moved it. We might be in trouble.
So, is it on? It's
It
on.
is.
Do I have somebody who'd like to come and open the Wonder Box for me? Oh, John, come on up. Go ahead. Just these two. What are they?
They're puppets.
They're puppets. Thank you for identifying that.
An elephant,
Yes.
and this is a pig.
An elephant and a pig. Do they remind you of anything? Thank you so much. Have you read any books about an elephant and a pig?
It's Piggy and Gerald.
Yeah, there we go. Piggy and Gerald. Well
done, John. Thank you. Our story today is indeed inspired by the work of Mo Willems, and particularly the story, Waiting is Not Easy. And the ministry of two of the ministers at Cedar Lane, one of our congregations in Maryland, Reverends Ali Casey Bell and Dana Edwards.
Hey, Gerald, I have a surprise for you.
I cannot wait.
But you have to wait.
What? I cannot.
You have to wait. It's going to be a great surprise, Gerald.
So I will have to wait for it?
Yep.
Oh no! I cannot.
You can do it. You can do it.
Oh well. Okay, I can do it.
Yes.
I am waiting. I'm waiting.
Good job.
Waiting is not easy. Waiting is hard. I can do this. No, I can't. I can't wait any longer, Piggy.
It's going to be worth it, Gerald. I promise. Very worth it.
Piggy, we have waited all day. It is almost night. We have waited for nothing. You don't really have a surprise, do you, Piggy?
I do. It's almost there. Trust me. Trust me. I think it's time. Go for it, Gerald.
Oh, Piggy, the stars are beautiful.
Told ya.
You did, Piggy, with such humility. Thank you, Piggy. I cannot wait to show you the sunrise tomorrow.
Thank you, Gerald. I'm excited to watch it with you. All right, thank you all. So can somebody tell me, thank you. Can someone tell me why we told this story? Young ones? Yes, John, go ahead. Jack? Waiting is hard. Yes, waiting is very hard. Leela? Sorry, what did she say? To teach you patience. Yes, waiting is hard to teach you patience. What else? What is it about the month of December? Go ahead, Mare. Patience is a virtue. Yes. Go ahead, Jean. It's Advent, just like we lit our Advent candles. It's the month of waiting. What's coming up at the end of this month? And before that? And before that? Hanukkah, we got him. And probably going to have Kwanzaa as well, and many other winter celebrations where you bring back the light, right? Yes, thank you all. Today is the third Sunday of Advent. In the Christian calendar, it is time of waiting, preparing, and expecting before Christmas Day when the birth of Jesus is celebrated. For 4 weeks, there is holy waiting and excitement, not just for presents, but the hope that this year something magical can happen, something hopeful, something joyful, something wonderful. Maybe by our learning how to get ready, how to wait, and how to look for the sparkle. So remind each other, especially when times get heavy and tough, to look for the sparkle. Here ends our story for all ages.
Good morning, Beacon. Good morning. My name is Mia Morse. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm serving as your chaplain this morning. Chaplains extend the spiritual care of our community. Our ritual of spiritual care is a community candle lighting. Together we light candles of joy, sorrow, and gratitude. This morning we light a candle of memorial for Sue Goodman, our Director of Religious Education here at Beacon from 1981 to 1984. After a long journey with vascular dementia, she passed away this past week. Reverend Robin officiated a graveside burial this past Friday. A candle of sorrow and gratitude for Dorothy Pittman Hughes, a pioneering Black feminist, child welfare advocate, and activist who co-founded Ms. Magazine with Gloria Steinem. How many of us knew this? I didn't know. She passed away on December 1st at the age of 84. A candle of recognition for all that celebrate Bodhi Day on December 8th, honoring the Buddha's enlightenment. A candle of gratefulness for Brittany Griner's safe return home and the continued efforts to bring Paul Whelan and others held in captivity all around the world back home to their families. And a candle of joy for the anniversary of Beacon's partnership with our partner church in Beirut, Transylvania. We are truly grateful. And finally, my personal candle of gratitude for our Beacon brother, my neighbor in Westfield, and Town Councilman Dave Contract. It's great to see you this morning. And for this and so much more, we invite you to come forward now to light a candle here in our sanctuary or wherever you are, maybe on your home altar. Thank you.
It's usually a metaphor when we say your light fills the room. But today it is also embodied. Would you join me in a time of continuing and embodied listening? Taking a few deep breaths, drawing in, if you're able, through your nose, and then an exhale through your mouth. Resting into the space that is yours here in this time. Maybe feet settled to floor as you're able. Hands might rest softly on your lap, palms open upward. And take a moment to pay attention to your body. How is your seat in the chair? Where is there maybe tension? Maybe like me, you need to roll shoulders back and bring some ease there. Perhaps it's been a rush of a day, or there is a heavy worry and you feel that tension in your heart. You bring the warmth of your hand there for a moment. Here now, beloved, in this moment that is yours, surrounded by the sounds of life. Glad to hear you, baby Callie. I want you to imagine in your mind's eye that you are at the edge of some body of water. Might be a pond or a river, stream, perhaps even in the sand at the edge of the ocean as the tide is slowly going out. Here in this place, you notice that there is some paper and a pencil or pen with which to write. You pick this up, suddenly knowing a weight within yourself. It might be a harshness or a judgment that you've put on yourself. Maybe it's a worry, a to-do, or a should have done that clouds your days and nights. Wherever this heaviness lies, I invite you in your mind's eye now to write it on that slip of paper. You notice next a small boat, a toy boat, the kind that you might have played with in the bath as a child. Take that slip of paper and tuck it into the boat. As you feel ready, move toward that body of water, releasing the boat into it. Watching whatever you wrote down drift away with the current or the pull of the tide. With each inch further away from you, turning into feet, feel a lightness in your being. Feel that heaviness drifting away. Take one more moment at this water's edge, even as you can no longer see that boat. Knowing you can return here whenever you need. utilizing your breath to return to this time, to the awareness of one another gathered here in the mystery.
We're going to sing hymn 389, which is Gathered Here. We're going to have the help of the choir so that we can do this as a round. We'll sing it together a few times and then split off into two parts. The choir will lead. It's 389. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here is one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here is one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Spirit draw near.
I think that's me, so I'm going to turn off for a minute. Thank you, Misa. Thank you, John. Thank you, choir. This is our final Sunday of 3 in which the plate collection goes to organizations working to alleviate and end hunger and homelessness. And to speak about one of those organizations, SHIP, Summit Helping Its People, is our very own Ted Brewer. Sorry, I stole your opening line, Ted.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Ted Brewer, pronouns of choice he, him, here to speak briefly about SHIP, which, as Robin mentioned, is one of the nonprofit organizations addressing food and shelter insecurity right here in Summit. It was founded over 30 years ago with the support of this congregation and other Summit houses of worship, and has continuously provided weekday breakfasts and lunches and weekend dinners to the patrons. Because of COVID, both the weekday and weekend programs have operated on a takeout basis since March of 2020, but SHIP is taking steps to resume indoor breakfasts and weekend fellowship dinners as soon as it will be prudent to do that. The current location is Calvary Church on DeForest Avenue here in Summit, and daily patronage ranges from between 20 and 30 people. There is no question that SHIP is meeting the needs of some folks in very difficult circumstances, including many unhoused individuals. There's also no question that SHIP's patrons are very grateful for the wholesome meals they receive. Some of you faithfully volunteered at SHIP to serve the weekend dinners at Oak Center before the pandemic. I'd be remiss if I failed to acknowledge that steadfast dimension of Beacon's support for SHIP. And I hope it won't be long before the Saturday and Sunday indoor fellowship dinners resume and we can once again assist as volunteers. Please contribute as generously as you can this morning. You'll not only be maintaining Beacon's long tradition of support for SHIP, but also, more importantly, putting nutritious meals in hungry mouths, meals SHIP patrons count on and for which they are, as I noted, very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted, for your tireless and faithful work with SHIP and so many more organizations. We thank you for your generosity. Our morning offering will now be most gratefully received.
Thank you so much for doing that. The first piece we're going to do today is I'm going to walk it with you. And this is a piece that was introduced to me by our congregant and chaplain, Mia Morse. It's going to be followed by Magnify the Light by Carl Stroman. And I just want to say in advance, and I know you will afterwards, like, thank you to the Beacon Choir for coming, because your spirit and your voices are just fantastic.
Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when it push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And it looks like it might be a long ride, but I ain't going nowhere. And I know it's gonna be a hard fight, but I will stay right here. I will shine a light in the darkest hour. I will face the man in the tallest tower. Well, it looks like it might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. I will work, I will fight, I will strive in the name of love. I will speak, I will shout, I will sing into the stars above. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous flight, but I will follow your lead. And I know it might be a long time before the last one of us is free. But I will hold on tight, stay by your side. I will be with you for this whole damn ride. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous ride, but I will follow your
I'm ready to go. I was like, mostly ready? 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 Thank you, choir. Oh, beautiful. Well, beloved, December 8th, which also happens to be my birthday, is the day commemorating the Buddha's enlightenment. Just a coincidence, I'm sure. But it did remind me, in all seriousness, of a story often told in Buddhist teaching of a student who, let's just say, is a little bit frantic. He has been studying and studying and studying scriptures and texts, and yet he finds in his meditation practice he is making no progress whatsoever. And so, kind of exasperated, he goes to one of his teachers and says, "Will you help me? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I study deep into the night, and yet it just seems like my practice is getting worse, not better, and I don't understand this enlightenment." "Come to my office this afternoon," the teacher instructs. The student arrives kind of bustling, and you can imagine like papers falling in front of him as he makes his way into the office where the teacher is sitting calmly waiting. "Would you like some tea?" the teacher asks. Sure, says the student, "but what I really have to ask you is, you see, I'm studying this one particular text." The teacher begins pouring into a teacup while the student speaks, and continues pouring and pouring and pouring until at last the teacup overflows and the tea begins to splash on the ground. "What are you doing?" the student says. The cup is full. It can't fit any more tea." "So too it is with your mind," says the teacher. Now, I always took this story, this little parable, if you will, as a teaching on how we ought to have beginner's mind by releasing and forgetting everything that we know. I see some of you have some more wisdom than I have had. Of course, that's impossible. And the older that I get, which doesn't necessarily guarantee wisdom, but I hope I'm getting a little wiser, I've begun to understand this story as being about the practice of letting go of our ego as much as we can, and of being able to hold information, opinion, experience even, lightly, not to entirely forget everything we've ever known or experienced. Great artists often do this with disciplined practice, and it looks almost ease-filled. Beethoven once described composing music as this. He said, "I carry my thoughts about with me for a long time, sometimes a very long time, before I set them down." John Lennon, on his creative process and the criticism that he disappeared after the birth of his son with Yoko Ono, had this to say. "There's a Zen story," he said, "that Yoko once told me. A king sends his messenger to an artist to request a painting. He paid the artist money, and the artist said, 'Okay, come back when it's ready.' So a year goes by, and the messenger comes back and tells him, 'Hello, the king is waiting for the painting.' And the artist says, 'Oh, hold on,' and right in front of him creates the painting. The messenger says, 'What's this? We've been waiting a year? The king paid you $20,000 and you just did it in 5 minutes?' And the painter replies, 'Yes, but I spent a year thinking about it.'" Lennon concludes, "There's no way I could have written the double fantasy without those 5 years of disappearing." Skillful spiritual waiting is not about releasing every experience and piece of knowledge that we have. Rather, by contrast, it's holding it lightly enough to know the moment to release. Yesterday, the Board of Trustees had a deep dive. It's something we do quarterly. I see some board members wondering what I'm going to say next. The idea is that these quarterly deep dives are an opportunity to go deeper, as the title would suggest, than we can possibly go in a monthly 90-minute board meeting. Now, this may come as a surprise, but I feel passionately, frequently, about all manner of things. So before this deep dive, Marcy, our board president, shared with me that I ought to keep an open mind and come with a fresh look at things and not enter with a predetermined conclusion or plan on the topic we were discussing. Now, to be fair to Marcy, this was in a larger meeting, but it was a bit like, come with a open mind, everyone. Now, I had already planned the topic of this sermon about waiting and cultivating beginner's mind, so I knew the universe was cooking up something. I decided against my nature to take a listening posture. I mean, for me, like as much as one can change oneself in 48 hours. And suddenly, in all seriousness, when I wasn't trying to advocate my opinion or advance a particular plan, I heard things in this time that I had never heard before. Vantage points that I had never considered, and what's more, information that I had been holding made sense in a new way. Waiting is not easy, to quote Gerald the elephant. And knowing what to release and when and how is the work of a lifetime. When Anne-Marie and I were considering having a child, which turned out to be children because they were twins, we were in North Carolina, and at the time there were all manner of laws that unfortunately discriminated against same-gender couples, and so we were compelled to meet with a counselor to assess our fitness for being parents. And at one point in that session that was, well, hilarious to us, I don't think it was to the individual charged with the task, the therapist said, "Well, have you played this tape to the end?" And Anne-Marie leaned in and said, "There's a tape?" Now, obviously there's not a tape, and it's become a joke with us whenever we encounter a hard time or circumstance or a long period of waiting for whatever it might be, and we are filled with anxiety. We look at one another and we say, "We should have played the tape." Because you know even better than I do, beloved, that there is always something, isn't there? There's always something. A test that you're awaiting the results of, or a test that flags something concerning that needs a follow-up that you have to wait for, a kid who isn't doing well in some area of something, a crisis or an argument in your circle of beloveds, a decision you wouldn't make that someone else makes for you, a job that is hanging in the balance. There is always something. Waiting is not easy. Life, unfortunately, is not all stars and sunrises. It is the endurance of the day to day. It is the spiritual practice of learning how to wait, how to hold this life and all we know and have experienced as lightly as that teacup, and knowing the moments to set it down. Some of you know a bit of my story, that for many, many years, decades in fact, I searched for the identity of my biological mother. I filled out all the forms, I registered with all the registries. Little did I know that she had done the same. And I am sure there is paper lost in some post office or filing cabinet. So much time passed. I even worked with a private investigator. I exhausted everything I could. I went to online forums and posted my information, and everything led to nothing. And so I gave up. And I thought I knew the end of the story, that we just weren't ever going to meet. And then one day, I was driving to Beacon, and I had NPR on, and I was kind of half listening when a story started on the radio that a new law had gone into effect in New York State, that anyone adopted in that state was now entitled to their original birth certificate and could petition for it, which I did. And only 2 weeks later, after decades of seeking and searching, I not only had a name, but soon a phone number. And now we have a cookie jar that was gifted to our children, filled with cookies this year for Christmas, from Surprise Grandma, as they call her. You know, I think about all of that time of waiting, and even that I thought I knew for certain how this story ended. And I think about all the moments when I wanted to know who she was and how different my life might be now, had I known then. My children might not exist. I might not be here with you. It's hard to know. An emptying of ourselves of all the attachments also means an opening to what yet can be. Cultivating an awareness, and maybe this is the edge of enlightenment. I don't know, it's just my birthday. But maybe it's an awareness of this interdependent web of which we teach and speak, but do we feel? Do we feel it in the positive and the affirming as much as we do in the negative? Yes, we can negatively impact one another in this web, but can we also hold one another in ways that we cannot imagine across generations, across spaces and knowledge, across even experience? Can we hold one another? Could time even not be linear in this web? And has it in some ways been holding us from that first breath? A few weeks ago, I was looking in the attic for something in the archives, and I came across a celebration of religious education. It looked like it was created probably in the late 90s. And so it listed all the directors of religious education that have been a part of this congregation. And I mean, it was interesting, but it wasn't, I was looking for something else. So I was key to just, move it aside and look in the folder for what I was searching for. For whatever reason, I decided to stop and take a flip through. And I came across the name Sue Goodman, a name I had never heard before. And then I read a little bit about Sue, and then I moved on to find what I needed. A few days later, a member of the congregation who's now moved called me to ask me what the tenure of a particular member of the staff had been. And so she said, well, there's a plaque with all of the directors of religious education right as you come in the sanctuary. Can you go look for me? So I looked, and again, I saw Sue Goodman's name. I didn't think anything of it. And then on Tuesday, while I had the Christmas pageant open on my computer that Thule has created, and we were reading through it together, a phone call came in. It was Todd Goodman, sharing that his mother had died, and would I be willing to officiate her graveside burial on Friday. We got talking a bit about his mother and her role here in the congregation. All the while, I'm thinking, Sue Goodman, I know that name. And he talks about how important to her the Christmas pageant was, and that he used to operate the spotlight, I guess. And he has these fond memories, and then he says, but I know you don't do the Christmas pageant anymore, and I understand. I'm just saying it meant a lot to her, and maybe you could mention it. And I said, oh, but we do. In fact, I have it open in front of me. And there was a pause on the line, the kind you know when someone is getting choked up. And I realized in that moment, without even knowing I was playing this role, I had brought a healing across decades. And on a blue-skied, brilliant but chilly Friday, we returned Sue Goodman to the earth beside her beloved. Just as we were leaving the burial, Todd shared with me a story of his father and how he struggled with asthma and how he actually died of it. And I got in the car and just had a feeling. And I called my son's pulmonologist and moved up the appointment. Listening to the web maybe a little bit more than is typical for me. Look east, beloved, toward the sunrise in these days. See the night sky as a blanket to a weary soul. Hold the joy of the season even as your heart breaks. In the midst of all that we do not know, join with me in imagining we do not know the end of the story, and that we could yet be beacons of light and healing across time and across place in ways we cannot imagine. Let us hold life as lightly as that teacup, and then wait in the growing darkness for the cup to fill once more.
Our closing song is number 226, People Look East. So I invite you to stand in spirit or body and join in singing. It's 226. People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able. Trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today. Love, the guest is on the way. Furrows be glad, the earth is bare. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today. Love, the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today. Love, the star is on the way.
Would you take hands with one another, beloved? Isn't this miraculous? Hand to hand, hoping one another across generations, ordinary miracles. You sparkle today. Did you know that? You shimmer. Faithful as the sunrise, beloved, so too may you be companioned with love, with strength, with wonder in these days. And when the waiting is hard, for waiting is not easy, may you know the strength of these hands May you know the steadiness of this web holding you ever into the night of shimmering stars. Amen.